On this episode of the Autumn Windbags, we chat with Super Bowl champion and retired NFL linebacker AJ Hawk. He had a ton to say about firing Paul Guenther, Derek Carr's relationship with Jon Gruden, Charles Woodson's wardrobe, and the state that's best for players to date in. We also went over how Rodney Hudson can get to a Pro Bowl, and we had a heated debate about the future of Derek Carr and the Raiders. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Nirvana CBD at nirvanacbd.com. Use promo code AW20 for 20% off. Nirvana CBD finds your state of natural relaxation. All right, here we go.
I got a dream of winning a Super Bowl. I got a dream of being in a Pro Bowl. I'm really not into dreams anymore, okay? I'm into nightmares. Raiders!
Caught! Touchdown! Raiders!
You're listening to the Autumn Windbags, an audio attack from the Silver and Black. Here are your Windbags, RJ Clifford, Juan Soto, Rory Parsons. All right, another episode of the Autumn Windbags. 2 more games to go in this season, and I'm pretty confident in thinking there's only 2 games left, considering we're 7-7 and the playoffs are a pipe dream. We have some semi-decent news to get to first. We do have a couple Pro Bowlers. Our tight end, Darren Waller, he's on representing the AFC, as well as Josh Jacobs, our running back. And that's it. Guys, your thoughts?
They deserve it. Definitely. Jacobs more so for his combination of last year and this year. Although this year has been good as well, but he was better last year. So I think him being a high producer 2 years in a row really kind of put him over the top. Waller is a no-brainer. But yeah, I think that's we had a couple other guys that maybe should have had a shot at going, and they might still with it's not going to be a Pro Bowl this year, so it's not going to be any.
So no one's going to fall out or not go because they're going to the Super Bowl. So you get like guys that are like voted like 7th at their position, but they still go to the Pro Bowl because like 2 dudes get hurt, one guy's going to the playoff, one guy's in the Super Bowl. Not this year.
One guy doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, one guy doesn't want to do it. It's like legit dudes only this time. It's a very, very exclusive fraternity in 2020.
I'm kind of on the fence with regards to the Jacobs to the Pro Bowl march.
I was a little surprised. Like his yards per rush aren't that great this year.
I love the guy, man. I really do believe in him as a player, as a running back. I think he's supremely talented. I was pissed last year that he didn't get Rookie of the Year. He was absolutely deserving of that. There's no doubt about it. This year, when they announced that 2 Raiders were making the Pro Bowl, and then they asked fans, who do you think it is? Darren Waller, Stonewall, easy.
Yep.
I think if you would have polled Raider fans at that point, I think you would have got an overwhelming majority thinking it was Rodney Hudson.
Bingo.
For sure. For sure,
right?
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs, great year, great player, but 3.7 yards per carry average. He really hasn't broken off any of those big runs that you really look to see. And there was also some pretty damn good running back performances from guys that didn't make it, that you could make a good argument. They were perhaps more deserving based on this year's body of work than Josh was, but we're all good with him getting the love. Like, he's a great player. He's a great dude. Absolutely deserves it. Shout out to Josh Jacobs.
I'm just worried this is going to make him make that price tag for him in 2 seasons be a little steep. And I'm definitely with the crowd that doesn't want to pay running backs. I almost kind of want him to be understated.
Yeah, I'm with you on
that.
Yeah. It's really anyway, this could be an off-season episode, but we should talk about how successful modern NFL teams are put together from a financial perspective.
Well, it's like the Bill Belichick style of like he squeezes every last little bit out of them. They have a career year, and then he trades them, and then they fall apart somewhere. Like it's like he just knows. Either he just is the football player whisperer, and he can tell when you're falling apart, or he poisons them before they leave. So it's just like, look, I'm a genius. Get out of here.
It's the second one.
Yeah,
100%.
That's like a pimp being able to look at a hoe in the eyes, and she's got $20 left. She's got that much left in her. She's got 20 fucks left, and then she's just gonna break apart. So I gotta use her up.
Are these skills you learned on the streets, Soto, pimping?
No, I don't know. It is not easy though.
Okay, I've been told. it's not easy.
It is necessary though.
Yeah, I'm so shocked that Rodney Hudson. I mean, it's so weird because when you talk offensive linemen going to the Pro Bowl, like when you talk quarterbacks and receivers and running back skill players, you're like, all right, who has the most yards? Who has the most touchdowns? Like you've got like pretty hard stats that, it's a popularity contest for sure. It's like with the fans and with the players, but you've got at least like some stats and info where you can make a good argument.
Mm-hmm.
With offensive linemen, it's just hard because like, what are you going to judge? Like pancakes? Like, and even then though, like Rodney Hudson, like he hasn't given up a sack in like 2.5 seasons, something like that.
It's not just that, man. He makes all the freaking calls on the line.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, how do you quantify that to make your case for Rodney Hudson? It's like, oh, he makes everyone on the line better. It's like, all right, like, does he make them 7.3 units better? Like, it's hard to quantify. But because I'm with you, like, I think he's the best player on the Raiders of any position. Like, who's better than Rodney Hudson at their position? Just holding his ground, doing other people's job, making everyone else feel, everyone else's lives easier, durable as shit, right? Like never gets hurt. He's never a guy causing trouble. Like he's just so perfect. And yet
never fumbles a snap either. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that. I mean, think about how many snaps Derek Carr takes from the shotgun nowadays.
Yeah.
Everything's right at the chest.
Sail over his head, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Rodney's about as sure as can be. The fact he doesn't get voted into the Pro Bowl is frankly ridiculous. He's an all-pro type player. But you make a great point. How do you quantify how good he is? And unfortunately, it usually comes back to subjective services like PFF. Yeah. That ultimately it's another opinion, right? I saw a ridiculous tweet, I think it was last week, saying Rodney Hudson was their 11th best rated center this year. At which point you just say, throw out PFF. It's like, clearly what? Broken.
Like not even top 10. Like, please name me 10 better centers in the NFL. Get out of here. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you're an offensive lineman and your name comes up, like you're probably doing something wrong. Like you're not. If you're a really, really good offensive lineman, you're basically invisible to the average fan. Right, the average viewer, you're kind of invisible.
I will say shout out to Kelsey. I think it's Jason Kelsey up in Philly. Mm-hmm. You see what he did on their Super Bowl parade?
No, what did he do?
I mean,
he dressed up, right?
Yeah, he went all out, man. I like thought
it
was
a wizard
quite
or some
funny.
shit, right?
Yeah, dude, as a center, you just don't expect that out of a center. He kind of pulled it off, man. I don't like that family.
We'll give him. So maybe that's what Rodney Hudson needs to do is dress up a little bit more. Get some attention.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what Rodney Hudson needs? You know what he needs? He needs to have a sex tape leak.
Ooh.
I'm telling you.
Get on that, RJ.
Think of all the celebrities out there who have had sex tapes leak, they come back 100 times more famous. Paris
I have
Hilton,
an idea.
Kardashian.
Hear me out.
Okay.
We Photoshop Rodney Hudson's face on that huge dick dude that everyone gets that freaking picture of sitting on the bed. We just put his face and put a jersey on him.
Oh man!
And just his fucking schmeat hanging down.
I saw
send it out to everybody.
The best tweet I ever saw was like 6 months ago, and the guy's like, "Things I'm very worried about receiving. Number 1, giant dude with a huge dick. Number 2, coronavirus."
It got so bad where I wouldn't even, if anyone sent me anything, I wouldn't open it.
I knew like the URL by heart. Like I saw like the domain name and I was like, nope, I know what that is. Get it out of here.
Hey, click here to see the coronavirus cases in your area. Like, oh shit!
I can't believe Donald Trump did this. Click here to find out. Boom!
Got me. Got me again.
God, he got me again.
All right. So Rodney Hudson sex tape. What next?
Rodney Hudson. Yeah, I think that's what he needs to finally get some love, literally and figuratively. Do you know why though? Like one last thing on Hudson not making it to the Pro Bowl. It all comes down to contract. So the 2 centers from the AFC that are going to the Pro Bowl over Rodney Hudson. Ryan Kelly with the Colts and Marquise Pouncey with the Steelers. Fine centers, mighty fine players. But you know why they got in? Not because of the skill set, but because they're better than Rodney. So in 2019, Pouncey got a $33 million extension. He was the highest paid center in the league at the time. The next year, Ryan Kelly got a $50 million 4-year extension in 2020, the new highest paid center in the NFL. They just went with contracts. Like, that's all the voters did. They saw, all right, this guy's on a good offense. This guy's paid the most. Therefore, he must be the best. That's what happened. They just looked at what they were paid and said, okay, you're the guy. You must be it. Trent Brown would have went to the Pro Bowl if he played more than 2 games, just because his contract is insane.
Fair point.
I'm interested to see what other Steelers made it and what other Colts made it, because I know that when the Raiders were putting up advertisements for fans to vote, they put Waller and they put Jacobs and they put Rodney Hudson on the advertisement. So if the Colts and the Steelers did that as well with their centers, I mean, that could be part of it too.
Yeah.
I think part of the Pro Bowl as well is, ultimately they just pick the winning teams. It's the Madden. Like, who actually takes the time to vote on a Pro Bowl? I know they made it easier with Twitter votes.
Especially on linemen, Like, who really spends time on linemen?
You got to think about who the average Pro Bowl voter is. It's probably a kid, and most of the kids just want to select a name. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if a lot of them are just going based on Madden ratings and, whoever the name is. Obviously, the Pounceys have a name. Ryan Kelly, again, I think he came up because of that huge contract extension. And you think, hey, the Colts are doing well this year. Like, yeah. It's a broken system.
Till you throw a sex tape in the mix. I'm telling you, Rodney, I know you're listening. Sex tape. So let's talk about so with everything that was going on with Paul Guenther getting fired, and I did not mean for this podcast to become just shit on Paul Guenther all the time podcast, but
that was his fault. That wasn't
his
ours.
fault, right? I don't blame us. I blame him. But it's still fresh. It's still an open wound. And I had so many questions. What was going on? Gaping. I had so many questions. What was going on like inside that locker room? Like, what did the players think? What did the other coaches think? What was going on in there? And so the closest thing we got, because you know how tight-lipped NFL locker rooms are. The closest thing we got was Will Compton, who, as you guys know, played linebacker for the Raiders last season. And
shout out.
He's on a podcast called Bustin' with the Boys, and he was asked about this very question. And he brought up 3 interesting points. The first one was how Guenther was a guy that blamed people.
It was interesting being there at times because that you felt when I was taking Tahir's job, you felt like they were throwing Tahir under the bus a little bit. And being a player that was in those meetings during the game, understanding how the headset works and all that stuff, there would be blame pushed around that you just hate seeing because you don't want to be playing the blame game in the middle of the year.
It's just one thing teammates can't stand, leaders can't stand, underlings can't stand. No matter where you are in the hierarchy, it's not taking responsibility and blaming people. Like, that's how you lose locker rooms.
It's bad leadership. At the end of the day, it's leadership 101. Like, you as the leader have to always be accountable. Even if it wasn't your fault, you have to take that blame yourself and be accountable and fix it. It's just bad leadership.
Yeah, you praise in public and you chastise in private. You don't, go after you're a starting linebacker in front of everybody and blame him for shit. That's just awful, man. That's terrible leadership.
His was weird about that quote, though, that doesn't make it completely clean. Tahir Whitehead was pretty fucking bad last year, guys. Like,
yeah,
straight up, he was, particularly in coverage, which we knew that coming in. It was you could argue it was a bad free agent signing right off the bat because we knew he was limited in coverage. And Guenther's scheme asks a lot of their linebackers. Like, you're going to have to play in space. You're going to have to play zone and man coverage. And he got burned on every single play.
Everything.
158.3 quarterback rating against him in pass coverage, which, it literally does not get worse than that. But is it the player or is it the the role that they're being asked to fulfill in that defense. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the buck has to stop with Guenther, and it can't be a blame game 100%.
It's funny you brought that up because Will Compton continued.
What you want to see in a coach is somebody who can coach, who can teach game plans, who can help players understand why you're building a scheme in the first place for game planning. You want to be able to inspire your athletes. Like, you want to be relatable to guys. You want to be optimistic. You want to be somebody you go in and is going to have a good attitude because you're all going to figure it out together. And you want to coach it when bad stuff happens, somebody that you see take blame. Now, again, I don't want to get into too much of stuff, but PG didn't, in my opinion, he didn't check a lot of those boxes.
So he talks a little bit more later about the X's and O's and the issues that we've talked about a lot, but just the intangibles that you want in a coach, especially a defense. A defense is like, let's go knock their teeth out. Let's get aggressive, rah, rah, rah. Let's headbutt each other until we get concussions. And then we're going to go on that field and start laying some sticks. Like, Paul Guenther is like the opposite of that. He's not any of those things at all. And that, you should be, if you're an NFL player, if you're an NFL defensive starter, you shouldn't have to have those things, but it helps, especially a defense as young as this one with so many new faces.
Yeah, man. As a leader, I've been in leadership at different levels, and sometimes in corporate leadership, and it's
Colts.
These are Colts. Yes,
Yep.
These are people who have this is how they pay for their livelihoods. Like, this is how they pay for their lives. They have children, they have families, and you need to be able to lead them. You need to have them buy in, and that's the big thing is the buy-in. If you don't get the buy-in, okay, yeah, it's my job to do what you're asking me to do, but am I going to push the next guy? Am I going to be that example for the next guy? Am I going to be vocal? Am I going to make sure that everyone, not just me, am I going to make sure that the guy next to me knows what he's doing? And that's all about leadership, man. You got to lead from the front. You can't lead from the back. And it just seems like, yeah, he was a nice guy and everything, but he just, he was just telling us what to do. And when things didn't work, he just, threw us under the bus.
Yeah, to boil it down to one thing, instead of telling the players why they would do something, he would tell them what to do and expect them to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, what Will Compton just said, you got to be able to teach game plans. It's a complex ass scheme. It requires a good teacher. It requires a coaching staff on the same page that has a depth of experience and talent for teaching, inspiration. I mean, Paul Guenther is the least inspiring dude out there. I mean, he's just not inspiring whatsoever. He's basically a glorified cab driver. Be relatable. What the hell are these players relating to Paul Guenther on? Absolutely nothing. Is he optimistic? Does he have the right attitude? I mean, we can go back through his interviews. I mean, he's had a lot of interviews that really pissed off Raider fans. I mean, the one right before the Chiefs game this year stuck out to me because he basically said, look, we're trash. We have injuries. We're going up against the best offense in the league. We'll do our best to hang on for dear life. Yeah. And Raider fans turn around and be like, what the fuck, dude?
The fuck is that bullshit?
You're beaten before we even go into the game. And it turns out we actually played some of our best games against the Chiefs, right? But it's that attitude from the coach of just disbelief.
Maybe the players had that was like their secret fuck you to Paul Guenther. Like, as soon as Paul Guenther didn't believe in them, they played better. Yeah. They're like, all right, Paul, you don't think we can hang? Paul,
fucking Guenther.
Watch this. Yeah. We're going to go beat the Chiefs.
Yeah. Backs up against the wall.
So when I think of like a coordinator, offensive or defensive coordinator, I think like they're two things, right? And if they're not inspiring, they're not motivating, they're not someone you can relate to, like a Bill Belichick, then you think, okay, he makes it up with scheme, right? Maybe you're not a people person, but your football mind is so good that you make it up that way. And your players respect you because you're so smart, because your plays are so well, and you get those W's, right? That must be where Paul Guenther got all the love. And maybe that's what kept Paul Guenther afloat. Not according to Will Compton.
The communication would be off kilter. There would be a jam in the middle of communicating throughout the week. there's a lot of stuff you didn't understand why we did things. An entire game plan was open on game day, whether or not you worked on it in the week. I remember sitting there. I was on FaceTime with Charo, my fiance, and I was gearing up to play. I want to say it was my first start. And again, I'm still trying to catch up to a lot of stuff. And I'm sitting there like going over our third down plan. And I'm like, we got about 25, 30 calls on just third down defense, which is
25, 30 calls
That's fucking
for the linebacker
insane.
In his first game.
A lot
just
for
on third down,
because you only have so many plays to run during the week. And when you're game planning and practicing, you have about 30-ish plays that you run during practice. 15 of those you might be working on third down on Thursday, one day a week. You're working specifically on third down. You tie it all together on Friday and Saturday. You do a couple plays, but to get through a lot of the game planning, it would be hard because you run a lot of the new calls and stuff. And then when you get in the game, the entire book was open. It was like a Madden playbook.
So he's not inspired.
Jesus.
Paul Guenther's not inspiring. He plays the blame game. And his playbooks are so complicated. And yet he doesn't teach you why you're doing something. Like that should be the cure to like a really, really complex playbook. And maybe if I don't know every single play individually, like macroly, like in a micro sense, if I generally understand what the theme is and what the idea behind the play is, I can probably play a little catch up. But
No
he didn't even
fucking
do
wonder.
that. He didn't
No
even do
wonder
that part.
No wonder our DBs are always fucking lost. Jesus Christ. I freaking heard that. I read that when you sent me the link earlier. I read that. I'm all, they have how many calls for third down for 1 week? That is absolutely ridiculous. There's no question in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind, excuse me, why the secondary is always screaming at each other to the snap of the ball. None whatsoever. Because they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and it's not their fault. They have a way too big a game plan, way too many calls to make. It's fucking ridiculous. That's fucking stupid.
Straight up. I mean, this is the stuff that we were talking about and speculating on behind the scenes. Like we can go back to episode 1 or 2 where we're talking about what Guenther may or may not be as a defensive coordinator or why he's lasted so long.
Yeah.
And we said from what we can pick up from the little bits that players drop down every now and then, whether it's Corey Littleton saying he can only play within the role that he's given, he has put limitations on these players with his scheme since day one, and it's lasted 3 years. So it supports the thesis that when we bring in these badass players from other teams that are, outperforming these deals and making the Pro Bowl or whatever, and we plug them into our scheme and they regress hugely, is there any doubt whatsoever what that could be around? And I think what would be really interesting to see, which we didn't actually see from Rod Marinelli in his first game, is if you strip everything back and you make it very simple, like these are our 4 fundamental concepts. Mm-hmm. There's only going to be, 5 to 10 variations on these 4 fundamental concepts. And they're concepts that these guys have played their entire lives. If we were to boil it down to just a really simplistic defensive game plan with a really simple defensive scheme, will we see a marked improvement in the same players towards these last 2 games? And that's, if we're going to maximize these 2 games, since we're all out of the playoffs, basically, right? It should be saying to Marinelli, like, let's get down to what you were trying to do as your core concepts, and I want to see you run it to the fullest. Don't worry about what Paul Guenther has done between, the first 14 games of the year. I want to see what you want to do, boiled down to the basics for 2 games straight, and let's see if these same players can play fast and with confidence. That's what I want to see.
The D-line played better against the run, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, they couldn't play worse after the 2 games before.
Jesus, tell me about
it. The other
it.
thing I'll say about this that's really interesting to me, it's funny that what we're describing as Paul Guenther's defense is basically what Gruden's done with the offense.
He's a better teacher.
It. Yeah,
exactly. That's the key, right? People believe in Jon Gruden. He's got a ring on his finger. He's been there. He's done it before. That matters to players. I believe that matters. 2, he's inspirational. Like if you talk to the guys, all the interviews that you see, Hard Knocks was obviously incredible as well to gain some insight into what Gruden's like behind the scenes. He inspires guys, man. He galvanizes the team. we joke about the Gruden grinders, but he creates Gruden grinders. He creates guys that want to get a tattoo of the team emblem on their friggin' tricep. Like I do like that about Gruden. Guenther did not have that in his playbook.
And Gruden also like had the personnel to do what he wanted to do, right? Like he had like a veteran smart quarterback, veteran smart center, and offensive line in general. He got the wide receivers and running backs that he wanted that were thinkers, like he passed up on a lot of players. Like I feel like that's why Amari Cooper couldn't flourish under Gruden. It's just a complicated system. I don't think that's how Amari processes it. Like he's a good locker room guy. He's fast. He's runs good routes, but like you have to run through those computations. Like you have to do like your brain's going to be firing off on all cylinders as soon as that, like before the ball snapped, after the ball snapped, while you're running your route, making your reads. And just Amari just wasn't really that guy, and his brain didn't fire off that way. So we got a first rounder instead. Speaking of other things you want to see the next 2 games, assuming that it's the last 2 games of the season, Derek Carr obviously got hurt last game, strained groin. Wasn't a tear, not going to need surgery, but he's trying to play on Saturday. He was a full practice participant on Wednesday. That doesn't mean he for sure is going to be playing, but the second last game was over against the Chargers and Marcus Mariota played as well as he did, I knew this was going to be the topic of conversation. Is Derek Carr on the hot seat? Is Mariota going to take over? Who's going to be quarterback next season, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you want to see play out in the next 2 games between Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota? Do you want to see Mariota play the next 2 just to see what the Raiders got? Keep Carr in there because it's his spot. He earned it. A combination of that. What do you guys want to see?
I want to see Carr go out there, prove what he's proving. He's proved it already. He's a tough guy. He's played with a lot of injuries before. I mean, he broke his leg and he couldn't play through that, but everything else he had, he's played through. And he's had some serious shit go down, Go out there and just be a leader, man. Go out there and be that leader and galvanize the team. When I mean, I don't want to bring up the dearly departed, but when we had Khalil Mack, that was like the bond, right? He was buddy with Mack, and that was kind of like the bridge between the offense and the defense. And I just want to see him pick up whatever positives we see from the defense, no matter how small they are the next 2 games. I want to see Carr throw a fucking parade on the sidelines for the defense. I want to see him really get the whole team pumped up about playing hard and about making plays. If he's good enough, if he's good to play, and he's going to go out there, I expect him to play at the highest level that he's played at this year. But if he's not good to play, then I'm looking for Mariota to go in there and show us what he has. And if he kills it, then, we have that discussion in the offseason. I'm sure we'll make a whole podcast of it.
What do we stand to gain from Carr playing these 2 games, really? I mean, building a rapport in friggin' game 14 with dudes that he should already have a rapport with. Mm-hmm. Like Derek Carr is a known quantity at this point. With the respect of he's a really talented quarterback. He's got a great arm. He can make all the throws. When he's on, he is on. He's MVP type player when he's on. Me watching Derek Carr on a groin injury that could easily end up in a surgery that kills some of his offseason, to watch the same offense that shit the bed for the last 3 weeks, before Mariota came in, I'm good. I even if Mariota excels for these next 2 games, I still think Carr would beat him out in training camp next year. Mm-hmm. I don't think Gruden trades away his prized asset that knows his entire playbook and can operate it on the field like a general at this point after 3 years. So I'm looking to see what Mariota can do with the exact same weapons that Derek Carr has had. We've got a mostly healthy offensive line going into the game. We've got Ruggs should be back, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, he was on. I think he participated. I look at the injury report.
But anyway, I mean, even then, with the wide receivers, he's got a full arsenal. I want to see what Mariota can do. The only good argument in my mind for playing Derek Carr, knowing that the playoffs are basically out of reach at this point, is I want to see the likes of Ruggs, Edwards. I want to decide whether or not we extend Aguilar based on how he plays over the next 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already looking forward to 2021 because 2020 is basically done. So anything that is an unknown quantity on our offense, if Carr's the guy to bring that out, then sure, put him in there. Why not? But if it's strictly to see if we can win, if it's strictly to see if Carr can put up 325 yards and no picks, like we know all of that. We've seen all of that. We know the limitations of all of that. I want to see what Mariota can do. I want to see what Jon Gruden can do as well with the run pass option, because that had some success last week.
Yeah, I want to. I'm with you. I think Mariota should start the next 2, close of the season, just to add to his trade value, because he's going to get what he's due $9 million next season. I think off the top of my head. Like if you're an average starting quarterback for $9 million, dude, there's 10 teams that would trade for that. There's 10 teams that would give like first rounder money or first rounder value for that. So I hope Marcus Mariota plays the next 2 games. I hope he plays lights out. I hope the RPO goes insane. I hope that, because obviously he was able to catch the Chargers off guard because they weren't expecting like option plays with Derek Carr, right? Until Mariota came in, there was no, so you got to catch them with their pants down. But I want to see defenses prepare against Mariota, still have Mariota completely torch him, and then trade his ass for a bunch of picks that we desperately need. Because picking him up was one of the worst free agent acquisitions of the year. Just $7 million for a dude who only suited up for like 3 games. Played when the season was essentially already over. It was awful. At least we can get something back for it, right? Make it not look terrible.
I disagree, dude. I actually like this signing. I know we can look at it after the fact and say, is that a great way to spend $7 million in cap? Probably not for a dude that played 3 games. But I like the move because it lit a fire under Carr. It said, you know what, dude? We're going to pay It did, dude.
You think so?
I absolutely do, man. He felt disrespected all year because of the Brady shit, right? And then Brady goes to the Bucks, and what do the Raiders do? They go ahead and bring in Mariota and pay him an ungodly amount of money for a backup quarterback. The only reason we would pay a backup quarterback that much is if we're not 100% sure on our starter, which you can be a Carr fan, you can hate Carr. We can all agree when we were looking back at this past off season, there were some serious questions on whether or not he was going to be the guy to lead us moving forward, right?
There still are.
Yeah, but when you bring in an expensive ass backup quarterback that started, it lights a fire. And he was never going to be the guy that beats Carr out in camp, but he was going to be the guy that steps in. Number one, if Carr gets injured, which has happened quite a lot. And number two, he would step in if Carr underperforms. And based on last year, what happened when we basically decided the Jets game was going to be our turning point and we just nosedived off a cliff. If that was going to happen again in 2020, we had a backup plan, and that was Mariota. And guess what happened? Our season went off a cliff. Carr's performance basically went to shit in critical times, and then we got Mariota in. Like, I don't mind. I
can't believe you wanted to spend $7 million in a roster spot for basically Tony Robbins. Like, you wanted a motivational figure. Like, that's what you want to spend $7 million in a roster spot to make Derek Carr work a little bit harder. Like, that's bullshit. Come on.
I think you like Derek Carr more than I do. Like, I like Derek Carr, but I see him for what he is. I don't know if he's ever going to be the guy that wins us a Super Bowl, period. You can surround him with the best talent in the world. I don't know if he's ever going to be the guy that can go through Super Bowl week with all the cameras in his face and do all those interviews and still show up in the big game. I just don't know that. So bringing in a dude like Mariota, obviously we're looking at it in hindsight. I liked the move at the time. Did it pan out? Probably not. But if he kills it the next 2 games, at least we know what we've got. And we can say, hey, Derek, with the same supporting cast, this dude has had 2 less years with you. And this offense still moved the ball. No problem whatsoever.
He looked good. He looked good on Thursday last week.
Good for 3.5 3.5 quarters against a defense that couldn't prepare for him. Like, look again, like
It's true.
Look, again, I think Derek Carr is our boy. I think he's earned it. I don't think he deserves to be second guess. Now he could lose the position, right? But he has done nothing to warrant losing that position. Nothing. It's 70% accuracy last season for 4,000 yards. Like he makes errors.
On.
He makes some. Like, look. Would I give my left nut for Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback? Yes. That's why you have two nuts. One, so you can father some children, and two, so you can get the quarterback you want, right? Yes. Are there other quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers? Like, would I rather have those guys? Sure. But realistically, who are we going to replace Derek Carr with? Realistically, like Marcus Mariota had 3.5 quarters against a defense that wasn't prepared for him, right? Like, are we going to draft a quarterback that can replace Derek Carr?
Yeah.
Right away with like pick 15?
It's been known to happen.
Absolutely. Look at the quarterbacks that are doing shit right now. You're either an elite quarterback or you're a drafted quarterback in the high rounds. There's for the Derek Carrs, the kind of 7 through 15, which would be average, through 16. None of those motherfuckers are going deep into the playoffs. I'd say probably the Titans with Ryan Tannehill are the one team that might be different. Otherwise, it's the new blood, man. It's the Josh Allens. It's the Kyler Murrays. It's even Baker Mayfield. He's turned around the fucking Browns franchise.
Browns.
When you draft a quarterback, you're not just benefiting from a potential stud quarterback. You're also benefiting for not having a $25 million contract on your books.
Pay his ass.
I'm totally down to use like a second, third, fourth round pick on a quarterback, build up build up a rookie through Gruden system, something like that. But there's 17 other holes 1,000 times bigger in this team other than Derek Carr. Right.
But if you don't believe Derek Carr can win you a Super Bowl, it doesn't matter if he's better than other weaknesses, which that's my fundamental thing is I don't think he can win a Super Bowl. I don't know if he's the guy.
We beat the two teams that are probably going to be in the Super Bowl this year, the Chiefs and the Saints. Like the Raiders have proven when they can play, they can beat anybody. When the defense
can hang with anyone.
If the defense is just slightly better than dog shit, right? If they're like hard kitty litter shit, not super gross, not super terrible, just generally bad. We've beaten the best team in the AFC, one of the best teams in the NFC. It's not the quarterback. Look, could Derek Carr play better? Yes. But if we had just an average defense, heaven forbid we had an above average defense, we'd be talking about Derek Carr MVP, Derek Carr taking us to the playoffs. We'd be just gargling every appendage Derek Carr had because the team has succeeded and he's the leader. Because the team fell apart, it always falls on the quarterback when the quarterback's one of the only guys consistently playing better than decent.
I'm with you on being able to beat any of the best teams in the league. It's not even that though, dude. It's who do we lose to and what is Derek's role when we lose those games?
Against the Falcons, obviously completely shit the bed, right? No excuse for how bad he played. The other games that we lost, he wasn't atrocious. It wasn't the reason we lost any of those games.
But if you take the stat padding out of it, and you're not looking at the 70% completion percentage, he's threw for 4,000 yards, and that makes him a good quarterback. No, dude, I look at the games when the game's on the line, and we're in the third quarter, and we're down by 2 scores. What does he do at that point? And
he has more fourth quarter and overtime comebacks. I forgot the exact stat, but he's like top 3 since he's been in the league for fourth quarter and overtime comebacks. He is that guy.
I know all of those things, dude, but we're talking about in the here and now. So let's cancel the before 2016 thing. I feel like there's a pre-2016 injury Carr and then there's a post-2016 injury Carr. Is he good at fourth quarter comebacks? Does he play clutch in big moments? Sure he does. But this is 2 years in a row now that we have shit the bed and completely collapsed as an offense, not just as a defense. There was plenty of times when the offense somehow, comes out after halftime and has 3 and outs, 4 3-and-out drives after, back to back, where the defense actually did its fucking job and kept them out of the end zone or somehow forced a fucking 3-and-out. And then our very next drive Is Carr missing a wide open throw, or the bullshit fumbles, or I don't know.
He does have critical, very obvious primetime errors, right? Fumbling into the end zone. The Falcons game were just absolutely atrocious. The problem is his errors have giant neon lights on them and giant dudes blowing horns and showing everybody look at this giant mistake I made. His mistakes shine because they're the big obvious ones in prime time when people see. But again, what is the better alternative to Derek Carr?
Drafting a quarterback.
Roll the dice on drafting a quarterback. Look, how good has Jon Gruden been bringing in quarterbacks? Marcus Mariota and Nathan Peterman. That's who Jon Gruden picks up. He gave Mariota $9 million, right, to be a backup, and he's the only guy that would touch Nathan Peterman with a 10-foot pole. Are we really going to trust Jon Gruden to draft the right guy, nurture him, develop him, make sure he's the dude? I don't trust that process. Not at all.
I don't either. I mean, that's a separate issue. That's Jon Gruden and his credentials.
That to me, that's tied into the issue.
It is.
It's what, all right. I'm just trying. I'm a pragmatist. All right, Derek Carr makes plenty of mistakes. Sure. Who are we going to get that's better than him?
I think you got to draft. I'd go to the draft. I know it's rolling the dice and it hurts.
Use a first rounder on a quarterback when we have so many other holes to fill.
Absolutely. I look at this as we're either winning the Super Bowl or we're not. There's no
then
medal
draft
for getting to the fucking
linebackers and
playoffs.
edge rushers. That's what we need.
Dude, we need defense. There's no doubt about it. We definitely need more talent on this defense. We need less capital going towards the offense, and we need defensive help. There's no doubt about that. But again, it comes down to the critical thing. Is Carr the guy to get us to the Super Bowl if he had all the tools and everything else? And I fundamentally don't believe he's that guy anymore. I just don't, man. And it's not necessarily his talent. It's the mental side of the game that I just don't know if he's got it anymore. When mistakes happen, he blames people around him. After the games, bitching at the media. I don't believe
quarterbacks do that.
I just don't think
Carr's one of them. We're not talking about everyone else. We're talking about Derek Carr, our quarterback. And if he does it, that's a problem. Now, here's the thing. If we spend a high draft pick on a quarterback, that's less money that we're tying up on the quarterback position. A lot less money for years to come.
If that rookie quarterback is ready to go in a decent amount of time.
I don't even know if we start a rookie right off the bat. I don't know if Carr loses out.
Mariota for a year.
I mean, instead of picking up Mariota, I was still all in on, let's give Derek Carr a year 3. Let's give Paul Guenther a year 3. We're going to see the benefit of the 3 years in this system. Obviously, that went to shit. I was really hoping that we might draft a quarterback at some point, because at the end of the day, Carr was never going to lose the training camp job. Again, he's a training camp Hall of Famer,
blue chipper.
Straight up, dude. He's always going to win training camp. But it gives us the opportunity to wean him in slowly. If we give Carr another year next year and we bring in a first rounder, it fucking sucks because, we could use that first rounder on a defense. But ultimately, if we're looking at Gruden as a 10-year project, what's going to give us the best opportunity to get to a Super Bowl in the next 10 years? I see the merit to the whole, spend the money on the defense. Let's get him a really good defense. But if fundamentally you don't believe, no matter what happens with his offense, Carr's going to be the guy to win a Super Bowl, then what the fuck are we doing? And where do we go? We go to the draft, because not only do you get the talent in the draft, I know it's hit and miss, but you also get the contract. The rookie quarterback contract is honestly one of the game changers that's completely changed the NFL. It really has, man. If you look at all
the whole
the
economics of the sport's completely different now.
Completely changed. Whenever they change the rookie pay scale, being able to pay a star rookie quarterback in year 2, 3, 4, bare minimum, is a complete game changer.
If the Raiders have been anything the last 2 decades, it's been unstable, erratic, no foundation, no rock, nothing you can count on, nothing consistent. Derek Carr has been consistent. Hasn't been perfect. He's been far from perfect. certainly had his glaring errors, but at least we've had someone consistent under center for the first time since Rich Gannon. And that's why we're even thinking that, oh man, is this a playoff year? Like, man, are we gonna win the AFC West? We're gonna beat the Chiefs. Like, that's the only reason we're even asking those questions, is because Derek Carr is in silver and black.
Well, let me ask you this though. When's the last time you've seen a quarterback go through this many losing seasons and stick around with the team and then turn it around later in his career with the same team?
How many of those quarterbacks had defenses as bad as ours? I think that's kind of the part of the question. Like, look, like I think look, 2016, right? The amazing year. He played really well last year. He's played really well this year. It's like, I just don't know how else to say it. Like, I don't know how we can say, like, all right, let's wipe off the checkerboard and start with a new king. Like, start fresh. Like, that's what you're doing with a new quarterback. And it's just,
that's what we're doing on defense.
It's the way of the world, man. The king is dead. Long live the king.
Yeah. I mean, dude, if you're not going to look, change is happening right now. We were forced into change on the defensive side. We're already back to square one on that side of things. Gruden's got one more shot at this. He's not going to be able to fire coordinators again and still retain his job, even if he's got a 10-year deal. Like, this is it. This is his last chance to rebuild this thing or retool it, whatever you want to call it, and make this into a not even a fucking Super Bowl team, a team that can make the playoffs and not capitulate halfway through the fucking season every year. You know what I mean? Like,
mark this in your minds, okay? Next season, let's say the defense plays somewhat decent next season, right? It was Paul Guenther. He was the issue. We brought in a great defensive coordinator. All these young guys and all these expensive free agents all of a sudden are playing up to their potential, right? Let's say the defense is like almost average and we're 9-3, 10-2 next season. And what are you two assholes are going to be chanting? Derek Carr, oh man, he's doing so great. He's taken us so far. Man, MVP caliber. Yeah, he's a Pro Bowler. He's my guy. And he'll be playing exactly the same next season as he did this season. But because the defense isn't dragging this whole team down like a giant anchor on a steamship, everyone's going to say, oh, it's because Derek Carr is better. Guaranteed that's going to happen.
Nah, man.
Fuck you, RJ.
No, because this is interesting, right? Because for me, I was Derek Carr's biggest cheerleader. I've got his fucking jersey in my closet right now. Like I think he's a great dude. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I loved him as a prospect coming out of Fresno State. Like, he's got the arm. He's got everything that you want in a quarterback. My issue with him is this mental collapse thing. I was his biggest cheerleader up until that Falcons game. And then I was like, okay, he's had a bad game. This is the turning point of the season that we saw again last year. It's the same fucking arc. Is he going to be able to turn this around against a vastly, vastly inferior opponent? You couldn't get any more inferior than the 0-11 Jets. And what does he do? I mean, I'm not saying he was the reason we lost that game, but he was at least 50% of it. Like, our offense could not move the fucking ball against Greg Williams and the 0-11 Jets in a must-win bounce-back game. And then what happens after that? Same thing. Derek, you're the leader of this team. You are the culture of this team. Like, you run this offense from the line of scrimmage every fucking game. We need to see offensive output. And what did we see? We saw another bad performance, dude. Like, I'm not looking at the fucking first 10 games of the year because you don't get a Super Bowl trophy for that. I'm looking at how he's finishing years. And for the last 2 years, our offense is terrible. They can't move the ball, which, yes, the defense is still astronomically worse than the offense. There's no doubt that it's the weaker unit of the two. But that doesn't let Derek Carr off the hook for what our offense has not been able to do since that friggin' Falcons game, in my humble opinion.
All right, I'll give you the last word this time because Lord knows this is going to be a conversation we're going to have 100 more times moving forward.
I just sat back and listened to you guys go at it.
This is a conversation that's not going to end anytime soon. And these next 2 weeks will be telling if it's Mariota.
Yeah.
All right. Well, coming up next, we got our interview with AJ Hawk. You don't know him. Super Bowl champion with the Packers. First round pick out of Ohio State, retired linebacker. He was actually a guy that I hosted a radio show with on Sirius XM, MMA Tonight, for about a year. Know him pretty well. Awesome dude. Here he is, AJ Hawk. All right. And for the first guest in the Autumn Windbags history, there was one guy and one guy only. We wanted someone who knew really good defense, someone who knew the Raiders organization, a guy that was charming, fun, some guy I idolized. Bill Romanowski was busy, so I got AJ Hawk instead. How you doing, AJ?
Hey.
Doing well. Hey, I'm a huge Romo fan. So yeah, believe me, I would have loved to. I wish you would. I hope you do get Romo on here eventually.
Have you ever talked to him? Is he as crazy in person as I envision him to be?
I've never gotten the chance to talk to him. I read his book back in the day that he wrote. I always followed everything that he did. I used to know one of the Fred Puggich was a coach for the Raiders when we went to the Super Bowl. Romo was on the staff, and I got to know him and his son, and I would just badger him with questions about Romo.
Yeah. The stories I'm sure are nuts. I actually went to high school with his niece. Her name was Cindy. And I tried everything I could to get into that family, but she had no interest in me. None at all. Swinging and miss. Yeah, exactly. So good for her. I would have had Uncle Romanowski, Uncle Bill. That would have been great. I got a serious question, AJ. Are any of those books in your library real books? Because I don't see any titles. I just see blanks. Like, did you buy a bunch of fake books to look like you had to study?
Well, I have to let you in on the secret. This is actually a background I bought on Amazon, taped to the wall.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. It looks real. It looks very real. I'm impressed.
Most people think it's a green screen, but I'm like, no, just some gaffer's tape I got taped to the ceiling, and it's held up so far.
I got to do that. I got to do that. So let's talk about the Raiders defense. Like, not just bad, but like historically bad. They fired Paul Guenther obviously last week. We brought up, like, our defense is full of like first round draft picks, expensive free agents, and they all just played terrible. Like, Corey Littleton was amazing in the Rams. He comes to the Raiders, not one sack, not one fumble. Like, what did you make of Paul Guenther and what he did with the Raiders?
Man, I don't like. They always, obviously, if your defense isn't playing well, they're going to look at the coordinator. I mean, they evaluate players and everything, but coaches usually seem to be the first one to go when you're trying to fix things like that. You can't just overhaul and get rid of everybody in the defense. They have talented guys. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what happened out there with Guenther, because he ran, he learned under Mike Zimmer, who was in Minnesota and had a great defense during his time in Cincinnati, and Minnesota's had really good defenses over the years. So he runs that kind of system. But I don't know, like, I wish I would have watched more and studied more of what the Raiders were like. Where were they getting beat the most defensively?
Well, no pass rush, terrible pass rush, tight ends and running backs killing us out of the backfield. Towards the end, like the last 4 or 5 games, the run defense has completely disappeared. Like, the Jets put up like 200 rushing yards. Like, everyone's running literally everywhere, right? Like, literally everywhere, the defense has completely fallen apart.
Yeah, it's tough. Once it starts going that way, it's tough to get back on track, I think. And so the Jets game, that was the one where they should have lost, obviously, right?
Yeah, that was the one where the Greg Williams went like a zero blitz on the very last play. And so you had Henry Ruggs, the fastest player on the field, going against an undrafted rookie free agent, single coverage. That worked out well. Otherwise, it'd be a 5-game losing streak. That's how bad the defense has been playing.
Yeah, you're right.
It should be a 5-game losing streak.
I don't know.
Are you yeah, go ahead, Juan.
Well, Will Compton wrote that some of the issues that the team had with Guenther was he wasn't a great teacher, not the best game planner, and he played the blame game too much. Now, not having played professional football, that seems like it's a trifecta of leading to failure for me. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for a player to say that too, it's a little bit surprising maybe, but yeah, if you don't do those 3 things, how do you expect to win? Luckily, so I was with Guenther for 1 year in Cincinnati. He was a defensive coordinator during my 1 year there. And I always say, like, winning covers up a lot of things. And luckily we were winning. Like, that was a year, if If you remember, the Bengals went to the playoffs. We got beat by the Steelers where we had like 75 yards in penalties in one play, ended up getting beat, knocked out of the playoffs. It was a brutal ending.
Yeah.
Our defense played pretty well throughout that year. Our offense was playing great, and that helped us a bunch. But, yeah, if you say he's not a good teacher, he doesn't game plan well, and the blame game, of those three things, that the one that would annoy me the most would be the blame game. Like if a coach is trying to blame other coaches or blame whatever is going on and not taking responsibility for whatever's happening. I mean, that's the thing. If you're the coach, if you're the leader, and whatever product is out there, if it's not doing well, yeah, coaches can only do so much. They can put you in position to make plays, but the players have to make the plays. Now, it seems like it may be a little bit of a combination of both. They weren't put in position to make great plays, and when they weren't executing. That's what it seems like. That's usually what happens when a coordinator ends up getting fired.
What are the locker room rules when it comes to like speaking out against your coaches? Because we heard like Corey Littleton kind of mentioned something earlier in the season, like, oh, I can only be as good as the scheme. Like when I see that, I'm thinking, all right, is there like a defensive leader that needs to shut these guys up, or are things so bad that they're just kind of like, I'm glad someone's talking?
I mean, usually when guys are saying it, and especially if it's name guys that you know, like guys that have made plays in the league, and they're making comments like that during the season, usually the majority of the people in the locker room probably feel the same way for that stuff to happen. I haven't really been on a team, I think, where guys have like publicly criticized coaches or schemes like to the media. That's something that doesn't, once that starts happening, man, like good luck getting that back. Like if you're Guenther, good luck getting that defensive room back. If guys are already kind of making those backhanded, or I guess kind of like passive aggressive jabs at the scheme and at what you're doing, like then if you're the owner, you're the head coach, like, man, I better figure something out, because this is something that if you don't stop it right here, it's going to get really bad.
Yeah, we can agree that the defense has been letting the Raiders down the last few weeks. How does that play out in the locker room? Like one side versus the other. You can definitely see that the defense is not doing what they need to do. How does that play out in the locker room?
Oh, it's tough. And you're really split up, like starting from a young age, offense and defense. Like you're all on the same team. You're all working together for the same goal, but you're two separate entities almost. Like the defense does their thing, the offense does their thing. And usually the case is I've been on the defensive side of it. So usually the defense is always saying, like, oh, offensive guys are soft. They don't even hit in practice. They're just running plays. They're not doing anything. So when that starts happening, though, and say like one side's not holding up their end of the bargain, yeah, you can get frustrated. And if it happens like over and over again, yeah, there's definitely, it'll come to a head. Like it'll boil over eventually, and there'll be fights in practice. There'll be arguments. I don't know what has happened behind the scenes there, but I'm guessing it's not great, especially when Raiders were showing a lot of hope, man. A lot of people had a lot of hope for this team. And now it's like, oh man, here we are again. Like, what are we going to do if you're a Raiders fan and you're on the team? So there definitely can be some push back and forth. You got to have some good veteran leadership though, to hopefully shut it down, because it's not going to help you. Like if your offense is fighting with your defense or the other way around, it doesn't matter. Like it's not going to end well.
Have you ever had to lay down the law on a teammate?
For something like that? That's something like complaining about offense or something?
Well, like anything, any reason at all. They're being poisonous in the locker room. They didn't pay their bar tab and left you there. Like any reason at all? Have you had to lay down the law?
Not like in a crazy public way in front of everybody. Like that wasn't really my style. And I was also lucky. I played at Ohio State, so I had a lot of really good guys around me. I had a lot of good like veteran leaders when I came in. And then in Green Bay, they don't really put up with anything in Green Bay. That's the thing. If you're a problem, if you're a guy that wants to create issues and say things that your teammates are going to have to answer for to the media, like you're usually not going to be around very long. So there wasn't a whole lot of that. But yeah, little things here and there. If guys, it's usually young guys that it's almost not their fault. Like they've come in, they've been in a whirlwind, they're in their first or second year, they're trying to get their first time, they're getting some notoriety or whatever. They may want to rest and think that they've arrived. They think they've arrived. That was an annoying thing with me sometimes. Like when somebody or groups of people think that they have arrived and that they got it all figured out and they don't need to listen to anybody. Like that's something that would bug me sometimes if I ever saw it.
So I bumped into TJ Husmanzada at Fox Sports when I was working there, exchanging stories. He played very briefly with the Raiders, and he was talking about when he was on the Bengals that Chad Ochocinco would literally just like leave practice when he just felt like he wasn't getting like balls thrown his way in practice. We're in practice. Talk about practice, AJ. When practice wouldn't go his way, he would just leave. And Ushmanzada's like, oh, I guess this is how it works in the NFL. The stars can just like bounce and stuff like that. Like, it's crazy how you think like, yeah, Green Bay, nothing like that happens. But in Cincinnati, it's just like, oh yeah, star receivers can just hop in their car and go to the bar if they want to.
I mean, it is amazing when I talk to my buddies that play on different teams, to the things that happen, or the things that I guess people are allowed to get away with. And when you're as good as Chad Johnson, though, like when you're making plays like that, yeah, you like, I'm sure you guys have probably heard, be who you can afford to be. So if you're making plays, you got a big contract, you look like you're pretty stable there, you can get away with a lot. And it just depends on who. Some guys like to push that and some guys don't. But if you're a coach or you're running that team and you don't shut it down right away, then it has a trickle down effect to the rest of the team. And they see like, oh, okay, we can get away with a lot more than I thought. And that didn't happen much in Green Bay. And now the more I look back on it, like I'm very glad that Mike McCarthy, he was the head coach at the time, he never really let anything like that slide. And I don't think us players would have let it slide either.
That's why I'm a model employee, because I'm not a star at all. And I have to just be as good as possible, because I can't afford to be anything more.
That was me. I never missed a practice, never missed anything. Because I'm like, I don't want these guys to get a look at what it looks like with me not on the field, because then I might be out of here.
That's me here, AJ. I'm always early. I do what I'm told. I mic check, everything. So I don't want to get replaced.
Yeah, we'll cut you real quick, Soto. Don't you worry about that.
I'm easily expendable.
Who would you rather have as your quarterback? Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers?
Oh man, what a question, huh?
Yeah, right. Trying to get you in trouble.
Right now, today, I'm taking Aaron, and I'm super biased because I play with him. I still talk to him, a decent amount, and I've seen what he can do this year. Pat Mahomes now, obviously, there'd be 1A, 1B, but yeah, I'm taking Aaron all day long just because what he can do. Physically, there's not a whole lot of guys that can do it. You see how he throws the ball, like just little sidearm zip, 50 yards on a string to in between three defenders.
Left-handed, eyes closed.
Yeah. And Mahomes does the same kind of stuff. Like the backpedaling he can do to create a little bit of extra cushion to get like Tyreek Hill get down the field or whatever, and then just fling that thing 60 in the air or something off his back foot. It's pretty amazing. So you can't go wrong with either of those guys. But yes, I'm heavily biased. I'm taking Aaron.
Now we got a defensive coordinator position open with the Raiders. Rod Marinelli's kind of just being the interim right now. Wade Phillips has talked about it. Raheem Morris is a possibility as well. Is there a guy? Before I ask you who, is that a job that defensive coordinators would covet? Defensive coordinator for the Raiders, because there's a lot of talent on that team. The offense is great, and like you can't. Like whatever improvement that the Raiders make, it's going to be all credited to you. Like they can't possibly get worse. Like they're 32nd in like every ranking. They can't possibly get worse. They're going to get better. You'll get all credit for it. It seems like a dream situation for defensive coordinator.
It kind of is. Yeah. I mean, you can name a lot worse defensive coordinator jobs in the NFL, I think, with a lot less talent and a lot less chance to win. Like you have a chance to win if you're in a Las Vegas Raider now. And Gruden, I know, he's the guy driving the ship there. I know Mayock is the GM, but what's weird is I've been reading, especially lately, how Mayock, he's the GM, but Gruden has all the final say, right? So if we're talking about personnel, that's on Gruden, right? It's not on Mayock.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. I mean, Gruden's a guy that I'm sure he can do it, and they do have talented players, but I don't know what they're going to need to do to kind of get over that hump. I tried to figure it out to where they finally break through and they figured things out. They showed signs of it, but I think their defense obviously has let them down. And now, so Derek Carr I don't know when this is coming out. He's possibly going to be able to play now.
Yeah, everything. This is going to be. We're filming this on Wednesday, and it'll come out on Thursday. But it's been 50-50 is kind of what everyone said. So like he's played with like busted up vertebrae. He's played with like broken digits.
High ankle sprains. Like he's only missed. Like I kept thinking, because
I'll never forget the nightmare when he broke his leg on Christmas against the Colts and ruined his potential MVP year. I'm like, oh man, he's injury prone. He's really not. He gets hurt, but he still plays.
No, he's tough, man. And that's when I hear people, they like to talk about, Derek Carr's not a Gruden guy. Is he not like him and Gruden don't get along? I'm like, it seems like they would to me. I mean, Derek Carr seems like an awesome dude, an awesome human.
Yeah.
And he seems to be super tough. So I don't know if there's any truth to that or not, or what kind of guy, who is a Gruden guy? Like, what would a Gruden guy be? Who?
So I had this discussion with a guy that we've worked with at SiriusXM, Ryan McKinnell, and he's like, well, the personalities clash. Like Jon Gruden's like crazy. He's like a cartoon character. And Derek Carr's like, serious Christian family guy. I'm like, dude, like Rich Gannon is the biggest stick in the mud on planet Earth. And he became an MVP working with Gruden. So this whole like, well, their personalities clash. So what? If you could throw the football, win games, like that's all Gruden wants out of you.
And nobody cares. Like in any professional sport, like the ultimate, people will give you respect if you can make plays. If you're a good player and you can go out there and you can be accountable to your teammates and your coaches, like then yeah, people will absolutely love you and you'll get along with the majority of the coaching staff and the team. I think Derek Carr has shown that. So I don't know. I bet Gruden is higher on Derek Carr than people think.
All right, I want to ask about a player that played for both the Raiders and the Packers, Charles Woodson. Yeah. What kind of leader was he in the locker room?
Charles is the man. He is such a unique guy. He's definitely not like a rah-rah guy, not out there speaking and breaking the team down every single day, but he would do it at times and people would listen. But Charles is like one of those super kind of, probably like, he's obviously like one of the coolest dudes at all times, on the field, off the field, studied at all. Like there was one year, I think it might've been the year he won Defensive Player of the Year, where he had like a nasty turf toe the whole season. He barely was able to practice. He would sit there and get like ultrasound on his toe and watch his iPad and just watch film all day long. And he then find a way to play on game day. But he honestly is a really good leader because other than that one year when he was fighting through that turf toe, he was always at practice. He was always making plays at practice too. Charles loved getting picks in practice, taking them to the house. Like it would bring a lot of energy. And when when you're young and you're sitting there looking, I'm like, man, this is Charles Woodson. I grew up watching this guy do this and I'm watching how hard he's practicing. And I can see how much he cares. I think it has a huge effect on the rest of the team. It definitely had an effect on me. Charles came to Green Bay as a free agent the year I got drafted. So we came in together when he came from the Raiders, and man, getting to play with him, he has by far some of the best ball skills ever for a DB. We always can find a way to locate the ball and he's also really good at causing fumbles, like everything. He can do it all. And he's calling out route combinations pre-snap every single game.
He's also the only guy that can pull off like the tuxedo jacket with the neckerchief instead of the tie.
Ascot.
The ascot. Yeah. He dresses like he's Will Smith's butler, but he pulls it off. You know what I mean? He looks great.
It became like his thing on TV, the ascot that he's wearing. He wore those in Green Bay on road trips, and we didn't even have to wear suits. We just had McCarthy basically said, if you're wearing jeans, don't have holes in them, like wear decent pants and a decent shirt. Like you don't have to wear a suit. Charles would wear a suit with an ascot and a big overcoat. Like I think he liked when it got cold because his wardrobe really opened up. He could pull out these different coats, a mink maybe. He's just Charles like a super classy individual. He's got his own wine. Like he's really into wine. A lot of DBs love wine. I know it's big now, like LeBron and basketball players, but that was a big thing that I saw. And Charles was like spearheading that in our whole DB room. Everyone, they all were like sommeliers by the time they were done there, it seems like.
Yeah. I feel like moving to a cold weather city allowed him to open up. Like that was the best thing that ever happened to him. Moving to playing for Green Bay.
To his wardrobe, at least.
Yeah, I got those coats make sense. Have you tried his bourbon? He just had a bourbon come out. I
saw that. I have not tried it yet. Have you?
I haven't. I went to order it and it was like, oh, $30, no big deal. And it was like $25 in shipping. So it's not like, the money I've spent on Charles Woodson like gear and stuff that doesn't like even like just scratch the surface. But just the principle of it, AJ. It's the principle. I'm paying as much in shipping for the actual item. I was like, I'm going to break down and get it, but I'll do like a live taste test on air one time, one of these days. But it's just, you know how cheap I am. I just couldn't do it.
You could get in the car and you need to drive wherever they're selling it. Drive down there, however far it may be, and pick up one bottle.
It'd be cheaper. It would be cheaper for me just to drive there and get it myself. No question about it. Again, on the Raiders defense, I'm a big believer that players don't just change venue and get terrible. Like Corey Littleton playing terrible, Carl Nassib playing terrible, Nick Witkowski playing decent, playing pretty good, but not as well as he did in Chicago. Like I feel like this podcast has become just a crap on Paul Guenther show. I don't mean it to be, but like that there's one consistency in all this, AJ, and that's been Guenther. Like do players just like fall off like that?
Not really. Like we always hear like, oh, a change of scenery is good for guys at times. And when I see that's a guy going from a scheme that may not fit him well to a scheme that does fit him well.
Yeah.
Now for Littleton, I'm not sure exactly the situation, but yeah, it can definitely happen where there's some schemes that are much better for certain players than others. Like if you're like be going from a 3-4 to a 4-3. I know when I was in Green Bay, we were in a 4-3 my first 3 years. We switched to a 3-4. There's a couple guys, older guys that were there that had their hand in the ground playing D end in a 4-3, and now they're asked to play outside backer. And a lot of times those guys, sometimes they're not too keen on doing that. Like, I mean, I've had my hand in the ground for 10 years. I got 100 sacks in my career. Like, and now I got to stand up and try to drop in the curl flat zone every once in a while. Like, I'm not going to be able to do this. So that stuff like that definitely can happen. That's the number one thing about being a good coach, I think, is not just jamming whatever your scheme is, whatever your plan is, like, oh, this is what I do, and just jamming it to your team. Like, you have to look at your roster, look who you have, and especially now with COVID, that changes week to week and day to day, how many players you're going to have available, who they are, and you got to like somehow, yeah, you're going to have like your fundamental staples of your defense, but you have to kind of work it to what kind of talent you have. That's why Belichick and the Patriots have been so good for so long, and that seems like it's come to an end right now, at least they may have a brief sabbatical and see if Bill can rebuild it, but they find who their guys are and they say it. They're like, we're never going to ask you to do something you can't do. Mm-hmm. And so then they kind of craft and they find roles for guys and they plug and play and they figure it out. And I think it's really hard to do though. It's easy to say, it's just really tough to actually execute.
So who do you think should be the defensive coordinator for the Raiders? You know, Raheem Morris has got history. Wade Phillips wants it. Rod Marinelli currently has it. Is there someone else you think that's either like due for a big upgrade or a promotion, or someone you think that fits well with that with Raider Nation?
I mean, I think Wade Phillips would be an interesting personality choice with Jon Gruden. Like those two guys paired. Wade is so laid back and wants to take care of his guys and has had some great defenses. You can't go wrong with Wade, I don't think. And just selfishly as a player, I know anyone that's played for Wade Phillips loves him. And so this guy's like, we want to win for him. We want him to be around. So let's go out there and win because we don't want him to go anywhere. I think Raheem Morris as well, though. I know he's kind of, as he took over the interim tag for Atlanta, he's had their defense playing better and the team has some energy. And I've been around Raheem a little bit, and I think he's one of those super high energy, really, really smart guys. He's coached like every position that you can coach in the NFL. So I think he could definitely be a guy that they would look at.
So you're doing shows with Pat McAfee now. I've been tuning in. Did hosting a radio show with me prepare you for doing a show with Pat McAfee? Because neither one of us know how to shut the hell up.
You know what? It honestly did. And I thought about that at times. And not that you don't shut up, but which is perfect for me because I don't, sometimes there's definitely days when I'm not very talkative and I have to be on the air or whatever, but you know what, like how quick Pat is and how off the wall and just how unique his brain is, like working with you absolutely prepared me for that because that's you, RJ. That's you, like this unique, weird brain that who knows what's going through there, who knows what's happening during the show. You always would talk about how you couldn't have your blinds open because a squirrel would distract you and you forget you're doing a national radio show. So yeah, I think it definitely helped.
Yeah, I missed. I don't know who makes the decisions over there at Fox, but they really shit the bed not putting you and Pat in the booth calling games. When it was you, Pat, and I forgot who the play-by-play guy was, but like I watched like a random there was an awesome 2 versus 5 game on, but I watched your game because you and Pat were just so good in that booth together.
It was fun, man. We talk about it all the time. Like, man, we thought for sure, maybe someone's going to call him, but let's do another game. And Pat's like, you hear anything? Like, nope. Silence. Since we did that game, like, yep, me either. So I don't know. We had fun though.
All right. One thing that I've always wanted to ask a professional athlete. You went to college in Ohio. You played the majority of your career in Wisconsin. Give me the rundown. Ohio chicks versus Wisconsin chicks.
It's a great question. Probably similar values, similar lifestyle. One thing that happened in Wisconsin, and I was married right before my first training camp, actually, but I would get to hear my buddies talk about if they would try to find a long-term girlfriend or eventually a wife in Green Bay, sometimes it would be difficult at times for some of them. but it wasn't due to a lack of trying. Guys were out there. They were hitting the streets trying to figure it out, bringing people in. They would drive to Milwaukee a decent amount. It's like an hour and a half, hour and 45. That was always a good change up. I'd like to hear their stories when they would come in about what happened in Milwaukee. But yeah, it's honestly, people in Wisconsin, I don't know if you've been there, if you've been to Green Bay at all, like probably the nicest people on the planet. And especially if you guys come from California, you probably wouldn't believe them, like how nice they are. I know I didn't when I got there. I'm like, are they trolling us or whatever? Because like they're asking to carry our groceries out. Like they're always just, and they care so much about the Packers, and like they care about the players too, like as players, not just like a number. Like they truly would know things about your family, and not in like a creepy way. And they just want to help and be nice. And
there's some pictures I took of your kid on the playground. Doesn't he look great?
Yeah. That would be weird. Luckily I never saw that. If they did that, they never presented those to me.
What, cause obviously you were married, you know, your entire professional career, but what is it like for your teammates that were single? Is it all the chicks just like money grubbing whores trying to bag some cleats, or do these guys could like find some decent women being a professional football player?
If you could find, like, Wisconsin would be a good state to actually find a good woman. I think that isn't just out there, you know, jersey chasing, trying to find the first professional athlete to marry him or getting knocked up or whatever it may be. I think Wisconsin's a good spot for that. But yeah, I've seen some different situations. Like who was I talking to? Somebody who went to Miami, like did a workout there, or maybe they're on the team for a couple of weeks, and they'd never played anywhere that it was like warm weather year round, anything. And they're like, man, this would be a different world. This is a different NFL than I am used to. And it's true. Like if you have all of these options, all of these things, I know when I went to Cincinnati, I went and visited shortly after I left Green Bay, and I went through and did physical and all this stuff. I hadn't signed there yet. And I grew up 40 minutes from Cincinnati, but I just being there and thinking of being on the Bengals, like, oh, this is where I'm going to play. Having like, you know, it's downtown Cincinnati, there's the Red Stadium right here. There's so much going on around just the football team. There's a lot of people that don't, like, not by any fault of theirs, they just don't really even care about the team. Like in Wisconsin, I never had that. It was like everybody there, it seems like, is there to support the Packers, and there's not a ton of other things happening. So for me, it was kind of a cool change up, something that I never really thought about during my 9 years in Green Bay.
Yeah, when the Raiders moved to Vegas, like everyone's talking about, oh, the players are going to go nuts. They're just going to be in casinos. Everyone's going to be in jail. I thought, well, for a guy who's in Vegas like 25 weekends a year, let me tell you, it gets old quick. So that's why I thought that, like, it's a trap game. The players coming in were the ones that are going to get roasted, because the local players, like, they'll get over the scene at any, they'll either like get a coke habit and die, or they'll get over it quick. But the players coming in, you know, a 23-year-old from, you know, Michigan is going to be like, holy shit, these guys are just passing out cue cards with hookers on them. Like, how can I leave?
I thought that the same. That happens in basketball more than football, because football, they have you on lockdown. You show up usually the day before the game, like at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. You may have like 2 or 3 hours. You could go try to have dinner with your family. This is pre-COVID or whatever. And then you have team meeting at 8 o'clock, and then you meet for a couple hours. Then they legit have bed check where they go around, knock on your door, and make sure you're there. So you can't really get into a whole lot of trouble. But I've definitely heard that for basketball players in Miami. I mean, if you're in Vegas, Toronto, and there are a bunch of strip clubs in Toronto. I hear NBA teams struggle because there's a lot of good strip clubs there, and a lot of the guys are pretty worn out by the time the game comes around.
I read an article, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and it was talking about the death of the trap game because of Tinder. So when these players go to these new cities, instead of going to the club till like 3 a.m., chasing tail, getting drunk, causing a ruckus, they just start swiping right, and they come to the hotel room.
It's too easy for them, huh?
It's too easy.
It's too easy. You can't even get the guys worn out.
There's no hunt anymore. What's the fun? It's a shame.
Man, the hunt, I guess, for that, the hunt is it's a digital hunt. It's not nearly as fun, is it?
Yeah. You don't have to actually get your claws out. You just set a trap. Bam. Gotcha, bitch. All right. So you got, what else are you working on? You got your show with Pat McAfee. That's every day, right?
Yeah. Monday through Friday. He's on Mad Dog Radio from 12 to 3. I come on usually at 2, sometimes 1:30, just depending. And we go till 3, and then we stay after on his YouTube channel. That's the main thing he cares about, is this YouTube channel and driving everything to that. So Yeah, we started that right once COVID hit, and now it's a legit full go thing for me. And then I worked as a color analyst for college games this year. I think I did about 8 games. My last couple were canceled due to COVID running rampant through a couple of teams.
Sure.
But yeah, I always want to do games. I like being there in person and getting to try to figure out what's happening on the field. And I like the whole week leading up to it. I basically study like I did when I played. When I watched the 2 teams I'll be talking about, it's fun to me. I still like getting into like the super deep, like X's and O's, and just trying to figure out what the coaches are thinking.
Any questions you have for us, AJ? Since we asked you all these questions, this is a rare opportunity for you to ask us questions.
Do you guys have hope for the future of the Raiders?
No. Yeah, it's not. I'm lying. I do. And this is why. There's just the defense, right? The offense is great. We just need the defense to be mediocrely shitty. Just not like historically terrible, just mediocrely shitty. And I think and we should be a playoff team. And that's what I'm saying is like our DBs, safety, first round draft pick, corner, first round draft pick, other corner, like second year, first round draft pick, linebackers, Littleton, $33 million player, Gutowski, like Max Crosby's coming around, Clelin Ferrell, 4th overall. Like the personnel is there, like that. The personnel of a good defense is there. They just can't put it all together. So again, I think like the greatest coaching gig in all of sports right now is the defensive coordinator for the Raiders next season, because you got a ton of talent, good cap space. The other side of the ball is playing great. Offense and special teams play fantastic. You get to take all the credit for a defense that's just not like the bottom of the sewer.
Yeah, and think about it. You can come in if you're the D coordinator, take over for a year, maybe just make the defense like a middle of the pack defense overall. You have some success, make a playoff run, bam, you're the next head coach, and all you have to do is be a D coordinator for the Raiders for 1 year.
Take all that credit. Like this should be the biggest go-to for any job. You should apply for it. This is your chance. No?
Yeah, go for it.
How would you just play linebacker for us, AJ? Like seriously, like we need you.
I don't think so. I don't know. How guys would say, "Oh, I could play, but I tell you what, I can't walk the next day." I don't care about the next day. If I could play and feel awful the next day, cool. That's life. That's every game since you're 3 years old.
It's satisfying.
But I'm not gonna be able to start and stop. I gotta somehow regrow some cartilage in my knees and in my right knee and both my feet and ankles if I want to figure that out.
What hurts the most? Which body part hurts the most after 30 years of playing football?
I'm super lucky where I didn't have I had a lot of surgeries, but I always got them in the off season. My right knee, I tore my PCL my senior year in high school, started getting scoped. I didn't have any cartilage barely when I got to the league. So that's been something I've been dealing with since I was 18 years old. So I've learned, it was good it happened early because I learned how to play through it. I learned how to take care of myself better, but that's the main thing I have. I'm lucky. No documented concussions, not a whole lot of upper body issues, tore a pec. That's it. No
documented concussions.
No, zero.
Not on paper.
RJ. Zero.
Good thick skull. That's
how many
important.
do you have? How many documented do you have?
Zero documented. Same way. You just don't go to the doctor. That's the key.
I have 3.
Ooh.
3 from banging your head against the wall watching the Raiders play.
Yeah. Well, no. One was a car accident. But
Yeah.
Other than that,
That'll do it. Is that why you were so intimidated during this interview that you didn't ask AJ any questions because of the concussion?
yeah, I just forgot. I forgot I was part of the interview.
I was just watching TV, listening to RJ and AJ talk. It's been great. AJ, it was awesome catching up with you. Thanks for coming on, bud. Appreciate it. Check you out on Pat McAfee show. Obviously, anytime you're calling any color commentary, we're there, bud.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I love the name of the podcast as well. I think it suits you well.
It does. It's like when Soto actually thought of the name. And at first I was like on the fence of like, do we actually start this podcast? Do I have time? Do we want to do it? And then when he came up with the Autumn Windbags, I was like, okay, done.
Gotta do it.
Done deal. We got to do it now. You can't let that name go to waste.
I can't wait till it grows bigger and bigger. And then you're going to start hearing like players and coaches on the Raiders, like referencing and like what you go, oh, it's going to be like bulletin board material. Tell you what, I just happened to get a clip sent to me from these Autumn Windbag douches. And then, you know what? I was thinking about that all day today. And they're going to be like extra physical. And then that's gonna be like, hey, and you're going to come out and you're going to be so happy. Like, you guys are welcome that I could motivate you to a victory.
All right, AJ. Appreciate you coming on, bud.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, I want to make a heartfelt apology.
I bet you do. I bet you
AJ
do.
Hawk. I didn't know that. Look, in my defense, fucking RJ, okay? In my defense.
I was wondering how you're going to make this my fault. I was very curious how you were going to blame me for this. No, please go, Soto. I want to hear how this is my fault.
I gave RJ all my fucking questions ahead of time. He's known this dude for like a long time. He worked with him for a year, knows this guy, knows his family, knows his story a lot better than most, right? He could have fucking told me when I was going to ask the question, Ohio chicks or Wisconsin chicks, right? He could have fucking told me, hey, dude, he was engaged when he fucking joined the NFL. Like, you maybe shouldn't ask that question. You couldn't get him in trouble or whatever. No, fucking RJ's like, oh, yeah, great question. You fucking go ahead and ask away. And I'm sitting there like a fucking dumbass. I'm asking them, like, basically telling them, like, hey, why don't you go ahead and talk shit on yourself and tell on yourself. Nothing to tell. I mean, he's married, happily married guy. He got kids, great family, but it's like, shit, man, it's a tough question. Like, I didn't know he was engaged when he was a rookie. Like when he went to Wisconsin.
I'm a host. I'm not a fact checker. All right.
God damn it. You know the guy. You know the guy.
So good.
I got set up. Fucking god damn it.
You set yourself up.
I felt like shit. I felt like shit. AJ, Mr. Hawk, Mr. the Hawk, I felt like absolute dog shit. When you sat back and you're like, that's a good question, I thought to myself, oh shit.
He was trying to figure out where you live so you can kick down your door and kick your ass.
Oh God. I deserve it.
All right. Well, coming up this Saturday game, which is kind of nice. Long week since the Raiders played on Thursday. Now a Saturday game after Christmas. The Miami Dolphins are coming to town. Probably my favorite rival outside of the AFC West, either Dolphins or Steelers, teams I like to beat. It's Tua time in Las Vegas. We still don't know for sure whether it'll be Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota starting for the Silver and Black. I'll start with you, Rory. What do you picture happening in Saturday's late game?
Well, I'll be honest with you, boys. Usually when the Raiders season's over, I go into hibernation and I'm done talking Raiders for a hot fucking month or two just to get over the fucking pain of it all. So I'm not going to lie to you. I really haven't dug into this one the same way I did with the previous three fucking games. Oh, sorry, the entire season of games. But the Dolphins have won the last 3 or 4. They are coming into this game with the exact opposite momentum that we are, and they're playing for something. That alone, even if Derek Carr was starting, it sounds crazy to say this based on how we were playing earlier on in the season, but they have to be heavy favorites, even in Vegas. And, you look at them, they're exactly what we just been talking about, man. Solid defense. They drafted a young quarterback. They gave him a little bit of time to develop. Then they threw him into the Wolves. And all of a sudden, this shitty-ass Dolphins team are competing in the fucking playoffs. They run the ball well. They play great defense. It doesn't look good for us. But those are usually the conditions where the Raiders show up, right?
Yeah.
When we're fucking underdogs, we're back on top, man. So in a weird, fucked up, creepy kind of way, I could see us winning this game. I don't know if that's me just being an idiot, but
Raiders are the Dolphins are just a minus 2.5 point favorites.
That's insane. That's a great spread if anyone's betting out there.
Jesus. I mean, what I'm concerned with is two of the things that we haven't done well defensively in a while. Stop the run the last few games, and that's one thing they do really well. They had some like their backup running back last week run for like 150 yards or something like that. And we can't cover a tight end. They have a really good tight end, man. Their tight end's big, athletic kid. And I mean,
and we'll have Nick Wachowski on the COVID-19 list.
Jesus. And that's what it's for, man.
Raekwon McMillan, baby.
One of the best names in the game. Yeah, I mean, he's all jokes aside, he's not the type of player that's going to match up well with a stud young tight end, is he?
No, he's gonna eat his lunch, dude. And you know what? And that's who Tua looks for too. Tua looks for him. in the red zone. If they get anyone there close, and dude, he's a big athletic kid. He can run good routes. He's one of those molds of those ex-basketball player dudes that can just go up and get the ball. And we've had problems with guys like that. I mean, what are we going to do? Are we going to just stack the box up and we're going to say, okay, Tua, let's see if you can beat us with your arm the entire game? I mean, shit, our secondary has been dog shit the last few games too. So, I mean, that's a pretty strong possibility.
I say that's exactly what we do. I'd rather Tua's arm beat us than their run game. I mean,
no doubt.
Our pass rush is dog shit, right? So load up that box with 7-8 players, do a couple, either run blitzes on running downs, pass blitzes on passing downs, just play man to man and see if Tua's left arm can beat us. Because, I mean, we know, like, it's like pick a poison, right? Like, when the Raiders defense plays an offense, that offense has 7 different weapons that they can use to beat us. Take away 4, right? Yeah. Instead of half-assing all 7, just try to take away 4 and just have him try to beat us with what weapons they have left. And if he does, so be it.
Yeah, you got to make him one-dimensional, man. Basically, same thing as last week. We got to take away the run game. Make sure you get your run fits right, run blitz. I think Marinelli would try to do that, no doubt. And you make Tua beat you with his arm, but they got some weapons and they play high efficiency, high percentage shit. And as you guys know, our defense isn't known for being frugal.
Right. I mean, Miami's good on special teams. They're not going to beat themselves on special teams. They take the ball away a whole hell of a lot. Probably have the defensive player of the year over there. It's going to be a tough game, man. I mean, when we were 6-3 or 6-4, I think right after the Chiefs loss, I said, okay, we need to get to 10 wins. And then RJ was saying we need to get to 10 wins and we'll be in the playoffs. And I was telling you guys, man, this Dolphins game, you guys are sleeping on the Dolphins, man. These guys play hard, and they've been winning some games, a couple games in a row now, and now everyone's waking up. I was talking about them, early on in the season, that these guys are starting to play hard, and they're losing, but they're losing close games. And shit, man, it's going to be a tough one. I honestly see us coming up short with this one. I just think that what they do well is exactly what we do defense poorly against. We'll see. I mean, is Tua the same level of passer that Herbert is? Herbert had a good game. He was able to move the ball. We'll see.
Yeah. I just pulled up the Dolphins depth chart because honestly, besides the big names, I'm a little rusty on who they got lining up. Let me run you down their depth chart. So, wide receiver, Jakeem Grant Sr.
Oh, yeah, him.
Left tackle, Jesse Davis. Left guard, Eric Flowers, the dude that literally got beaten like a drum in New York every week. Center, Ted Karras. Right guard, Solomon Kindley. Right tackle, Robert Hunt. Right, I pride myself on knowing a good amount.
I know his brother Mark.
Like straight up, I pride myself on knowing a good amount about the NFL. I follow the draft religiously every year. I could not tell you shit about any of those guys except for Eric Flowers. But like, if you were to compare our offensive line, big names, big money, with this offensive line, and then you talk about how to build a team that can go to the playoffs, like, what the fuck do you do when you look at our roster and then you look at this roster? Like, that has to be a reflection of the coaching.
100%.
It's not continuity, because this is a ragtag group that's literally come together this year with a rookie quarterback. So what the fuck is it? It's a reflection of coaching.
It's Fitzmagic, obviously.
Dude, it's top to bottom. And then I love this part. Look at the defense. Dude, Christian Wilkins, Emmanuel Ogba, Shaq Lawson. You know who these dudes are? Kyle Van Noy. You know who these dudes are? Gruden fucking grinders. That's who these guys are. Under talented, but highly motivated, high IQ, basically the Cleveland Farrells of the world that we all, we hate those draft picks, but they are overperforming for the Dolphins, and they're a fucking playoff team right now, man.
9-5, man. They're 9-5.
Well, we'll see what our Gruden grinders on defense does next season under Wade Phillips, Ricky Morris. Who knows? I don't know. All I know is I would love a great Christmas present for me would be to help knock the Dolphins out of the playoffs with just whatever little like umph we got left this season. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to knock the Dolphins out of the playoffs. All right, boys.
Wait. Fun fact before we end. The Dolphins were the team that I knew before any other NFL team as someone that was born and raised in the UK. Any guesses why I knew the Dolphins and not other teams?
Ace Ventura.
Ace Ventura, man.
Yes.
Ace Ventura.
Your gun is digging into my hip.
Dan Marino, man. I knew who the fuck Dan Marino was. Like that's.
Did you buy a pair of isotoner gloves?
No, but I thought about getting a sex change.
Or the worst case of hemorrhoids I have ever seen. Ihorn's a man. I can't think of a better way to end a podcast with Jim Carrey jokes. All right, we'll be back Saturday night with the post-game show after the Raiders help knock the Dolphins out of the AFC wildcard playoff race. Until then, knock on wood if you're with me. All right, that's it for another episode of the Autumn Windbags. Thank you so much for checking us out. Make sure to subscribe, listen to us often, check us out on all the social medias, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, we're at the Autumn Windbags. And again, thank you to Nirvana CBD for helping us out. Again, promo code AW20 for 20% off. Until next time.